Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Fleshgod Apocalypse, Opera, out August 23rd on Nuclear Blast. The album has 10 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's 6th full-length studio album. They are an Italian symphonic death metal band. When you look at this album, when you look at the design of this record, I think you also have to look at the concept behind the album and at the name of the album itself. It's all tied in together. The concept behind this album is the story of Francesco. He nearly lost his life in a mountain climbing accident, and that is the basis of this album. That is the influence of this record. And when you think of opera, you think of tragedy, think of storytelling, you think of a main character. So when you put those two together, you start to see how the whole record starts to take shape. Then you have an album that has an intro, has an outro, so since the beginning is since an end. And in between, you have that journey, you have that main character, you have that pain and suffering, that tragedy built into the storytelling, eventually into the sound, into the lyrics, and into the vocal performance. So it's an album that's all tied in together. It's very hard to disseminate this record without seeing that all of these pieces really belong next to one another. So the design of this record is just a consequence of the theme and of the album itself, and I really enjoy the way it puts all of these songs together, the way it presents the stories, and the way it keeps you gripped to that same stories in a very engaging way. So great flow, great design, tying all the pieces together perfectly. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this is definitely an album that stays on path with previous Fleshgod Apocalypse records. It's a symphonic death metal album with great sound, really pungent guitars and drums, super heavy, and the orchestrations behind it that help give life not just to the sound, but to the lyrics, to the character, to the pain and suffering of that character, and to the story that is being told at any given time. This has always been the case to a degree or another within Fleshgod Apocalypse, within their sound. The main difference on this record, sound-wise, is that I feel like they use the same elements of the past, but they define them better on this album in order to create a more vivid experience, in order to create a movie score. If you think about, once again, the title, the theme, the concept, the construction, if you're putting all of this together, if you're creating a cinematic opera, you need a score. You need a score that represents every peak and valley of the story that you're telling. So this album, from an orchestration standpoint, stood out to me because it became a lot more vivid. It became a lot more of a movie score, allowing the orchestrations themselves to become almost independent from everything else sound-wise. And in the past, I've seen that at times. I've seen glimpses of that, but I've never seen a record that was that consistent from start to finish, where the orchestrations behind each and every single track could exist on their own, and they would help tell the same story without anything else. So that was something that elevated not just the sound quality on this album, but the impact of the story, the impact of the theme of this record, and the impact of the emotions that are buried within it. So this makes the orchestrations more impactful. At times it makes the songs bigger, at times it makes the songs darker, at times it makes the songs more brighter. It's a very well-crafted record from that standpoint, and allowing the orchestrations to kind of have their own lane, their own path, their own existence, allows everything else to be also a little bit more powerful. And you look at the guitar sound, you look at the drums. The heaviness of this record is always a combination of those two elements. It's not like the guitars are heavier than the drums or the drums are heavier than the guitars. No, the two together are the elements, are the cornerstones of the heaviness on this album. And at times is extremely brutal. You perhaps notice it more with the drums because of the impact that they have. It's this barrage, almost like machine gun style drumming, that propels the tracks forward, that adds size to the songs, that adds aggression, that adds intensity, that makes these tracks incredibly brutal. But then you also have the guitars not only pairing up with that sound in order to emphasize it, but breaking away from it and giving a little bit more texture behind it, with acoustic guitars, with more melodic riffs, with more melancholic melodies, with solos that at times match the vibe and mood and experience of the tracks, and in other cases the solos break away from that mold and creating pockets of clarity where clarity really lacks due to the overall density of heaviness. Because the heaviness on this album, when it comes together, drums and guitars, it's very dense. It's not as layered, it's not as textured. The textures around it make it a little bit easier to digest, allow that overall heaviness to be a little bit more palpable. But the elements together create that density of sound and heaviness, and that is something that's consistent from beginning to end. I really enjoy this album from that standpoint, because at times, if you're telling a story like this, and there's moments that clarity lacks, that it's more about the fog of where you are and everything that's happening to you, creating a more dense sound that looks outside of that density for the orchestrations, for some melodies, in order to break it apart, in order to create the layers, in order to create the textures, while keeping this one piece very compact together. It's the right approach, in my opinion. You're able to become a lot more emotionally driven, and you're able to squeeze a lot more emotion out of these songs by taking this approach. Now, once it comes into the vocals, this is where things changed. I mean, things changed slightly in the sound, not the elements, but how the elements were presented. But here in the vocals, they couldn't hide it, and I felt like this is where fans are going to be. This is what's going to intrigue fans, and this is what is going to surprise fans. This is an album where Francesco takes the lead, but a lead that has a very important secondary actor beside him, not behind him, beside him. This is the album that I feel that Veronica took the biggest steps that she's ever taken when it comes to a Fleshgod Apocalypse record. Not just taking steps forward and being on par with Francesco, but taking steps forward and at times even taking the lead within the songs. This to me allows the band to be a lot more dynamic vocally. It allows them to be also more emotionally attached to the songs from a vocal standpoint. And not only using her soprano voice, but using her clean vocal approach, for lack of a better term, also adds incredible texture and incredible emotion to the way these songs are represented. This is, without a doubt, her best record with the band. It's also the one where she defines herself the best, where she carves a much bigger spot for herself. She takes, at times, like I said, the lead, and that is something that it's easily noticed when you're listening to this album, and the impact and the quality that it adds to the album, it's also easily noticed. She's definitely walking away from being not in the shadows, but being behind Francesco and moving a little bit more towards him, and the two stand side by side vocally on this album, and the album is as strongly from one as it is from the other. But if you don't have Veronica doing what she's doing on this album, taking the vocal approach, using her full spectrum of her range, adding so much quality, adding so much value, and using this incredible tool that you have in your arsenal, I don't think you can have the album feel, sound, or give away the same vibe, the same emotional experience that the record has. Because out of Francesco, you're getting a sense of intensity, a sense of aggression, a sense of anger at times, and that comes naturally with his style, with his vocal performance that he has. He doesn't have to go too far or too deep into the well in order to do it. So how do you create ebbs and flows vocally? How do you not allow the album to become stagnant and every single song almost feeling like it's carrying the exact same emotion over and over again because of the delivery being very uniform? You bring her into the mix, you give her a bigger role, you give her more to do, and not only that, you allow her to go outside of the soprano style of vocal approach and bring all of that energy, bring all of that beauty, bring all of that melancholy into the vocal performance, allowing this album to be extremely rich from that standpoint. I'm not going to go as far as to say that this is their greatest record ever, because I think there's a lot of new nuances on this album that we need time to digest as fans, that we need time to appreciate as fans, and I think there's a few elements on this album that might jolt the listeners in case they're not quite prepared for it. But this is, in my humble opinion, one of their best records to date, because of using everything that they've always had at their disposal, but using it in a different way, packaging differently, carrying it forward differently, being intelligent in how can you create an album that sounds like the albums of the past while still offering the listeners something new, fresh, and something exciting towards the future. This album is all of that. I love the theme. I love the experience that it took me on. I love the concept from title to design to approach to execution. And I love the fact that Veronica got to do so much on this record. Definitely walking, not that she's ever been in the shadows, but I think this is an album that pushes her forward with such incredible strength that's going to be undeniable to talk about her performance and her impact, not just on this record, but on the band moving forward. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with I Can Never Die. Heavy, demolishing. I mean, you can see that this is actually the first song on the record. The one before this is a little bit of an intro, so this is technically the first song on the record, and it's heavy, demolishing, with that barrage of drums and guitars together, creating this wall of sound that just rips through. Very dense, a sense of density in that heaviness and in that sound that is only broken up slightly by the chorus. And in the chorus, you have Veronica's clean vocals, not soprano, but just her clean singing voice. And that singing voice is very haunting. The orchestrations that come behind her with Francesco's heavy vocals help define that chorus, help break away the density of that chorus, becoming more melodic, becoming eerie, becoming more melancholic. It's a combination of different emotions at every single turn in one short chorus, but it's a very important chorus in terms of the design and execution because it helps break away that density that the verses had. And then you move into the solo section, really great solo section that offers a sense of calm in a song that at times just felt relentless. And then that sense of time allows them to move into a piano piece that is a stripped down version of the chorus. So you have Veronica's vocals, you have the piano coming off of this solo, a real stripped down version of what the real chorus is, and then as soon as that stripped down version is finished, it goes back again, it builds back again to what the original chorus was. Really well done, because that moment, that piano vocal moment following the solo, allows you to reconnect with the previous choruses of the songs and see a little bit more textured within it. So the next time you go into this track, that chorus will sound different because of this one piece later down the line in the song. So great way of creating almost a boomerang effect within this track. Next we have Morphine Waltz. The piano in this song is outstanding. It's a very heavy song. It's a very cinematic song from an orchestrational standpoint. Veronica does a little bit of screaming in this track, which I felt that added great intensity to the song, because the song already has a lot of intensity, and I love the piano ebbs and flows that the track has. But overall, it's very pedal to the metal kind of track, and even the solo on this song has so much intensity. It's just a very intense song. It's a song that you almost feel that morphine going through your veins and completely changing everything that's going through you. Everything is changing by the second, and this track has that movement of something going through your veins quickly and impacting every single cell throughout that process, throughout that movement of inserting itself into your body, putting you almost into a trance, which allows to create this idea of Morphine Waltz. I think it's a great track in terms of what represents, in terms of the lyrical content, and how it's displayed. Because if you look at the piano on this song, it almost feels like those drips of morphine coming through when you're in a hospital bed, for example. So it has that hauntingness to it. And Veronica's vocals, the screaming vocals, it's almost what you would hear if you're in a haze and those around you, or the sense that you have when something is happening around you but you're not quite sure of what's going on because you're in this haze, in this altered state of mind. So this song it encapsulates that moment extremely well, is vivid in the intensity that the song has and the fastness of the song, because everything is happening super fast. So I love the way this track is put together. There's a lot of little nuances, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this song for the listener to discover. Last and not least, one of my absolute favorite songs on this record, and that is Till Death Do Us Part. This is a song where Veronica had been teasing us vocally throughout the record, taking bigger roles, bigger spots in songs, going outside of her soprano style vocal approach to give us a lot more than just that. And on this song, she takes full reins. She is the main vocalist on this track. Francesco becomes the secondary vocalist, or the backup vocalist, if you will. She takes the lead. She sings this song and is haunting. It's beautiful. It's out of this world. The piano sounds emotional. It sounds dark. It sounds painful. Like there's pain in this song. There's pain in the sound. There's pain in the vocal delivery, and the aspect of being a haunting song from a soundscape point of view is really well emphasized, not just by the piano, but by the bass. The bass on this track is really cool because it works really well with the piano in order to create that nice textured sound that the song really needed. And then once it gets into the chorus is bigger sound-wise and vocally, because vocally you have Francesco's harsh vocals behind Veronica to create this sense of depth, this sense of layer, this sense of thickness, and it's a heartfelt song. I would say this is as close as you're going to get from a Fleshgod Apocalypse ballad. It's beautiful, it's haunting. I love the fact that it comes at the end of the record because it's so unique, it's so different musically and vocally from anything else that you're going to hear on this album, that it could not be anywhere else on the design but towards the end. After this song comes the outro, the record is over. So it comes at the right spot because it's a head scratcher. The moment you listen to this song and Veronica starts singing and you start to wonder, wow, there's not going to be any Francesco on this track. He's there, but once again, as a secondary role. This is an out-of-this-world song. I love the sound. I cannot get enough of it. Every time I hear this song, I get emotional myself, listening to the lyrics, listening to her delivery, Till Death Do Us Part. It's a strong, heartfelt song, almost like two people coming together and coming to terms with, I cannot live without you, therefore you cannot die because I'm still living. It's a song like that. And if you ever loved someone, or you love someone, or you have someone that you care deeply about, and you would be faced with a situation like that, I think this song would completely not pull at your heartstrings, but rip them apart. It's that kind of track. It's that powerful. This is it, Fleshgod Apocalypse, Opera, out August 23rd on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.